I want to share with you some comments on my thoughts about the overall worldwide venture community as well as how it relates to Israel and Brazil. And if you look at what's going on globally, venture has been quite robust. Last year in 2018 was amazing, was about 120 billion invested worldwide. That was in the first half, right? We're talking about, it's roughly about a $200 billion global market. This year's first half was down a bit to about 105 billion globally. Sounds like not good news, except that you have to understand what's been going on in China. Because the Chinese numbers, which really have been a big part of all of this, were down significantly. In fact, down almost 80%. So the fact that the worldwide venture market stayed as robust, it's still a 200, maybe this year 210 or 220 total market, is a very, very good thing, even with the Chinese sort of falling a little bit off the cliff. What's interesting, though, is that Israel comes along and has now become really the second Silicon Valley of the world. And in fact, when you go to the WEF, or the World Economic Forum, this slide looks like it could have been produced by the gentleman who just preceded me, by the Israeli government. But this is what the WEF, which is the guys out of Davos, say about Israel. That we're number one in the world in terms of growth of innovative companies, number one in terms of R&D expenditures, and that's not including military. That's just the civilian. Number one about attitudes towards entrepreneurial risk, which is a big part of why Israel's so good. And number two in venture capital, obviously the US has got more. And number two in terms of ease of finding skilled employees. It's pretty remarkable. And you look at the dollars that have been invested in Israel, and they're really wild. And especially wild when you compare them, for example, to LATAM, which is doing really well, but we'll look at the comparison in a second. So Israel was about 2 billion 5 years ago. Last year was 6.5 billion. And look what happened in the first half of this year. The first half of this year was already $4 billion invested in venture, which is quite remarkable in Israel. Now that 4 billion, by the way, which will become about 8 billion by the end of the year, that compares to LATAM, not Brazil, but all of LATAM, all 650 million people in the continent will have about $2 billion invested in venture. So you have this real anomaly where a little tiny country of not even 10 million people, right? Israel has 9 million population, is going to have $8 billion invested in venture capital, and the entire continent of 650 million, soon 700 million, has 2 billion. Now, I'm not saying that in any way as a criticism of LATAM. In fact, I think it's an opportunity. Because when I look at what's going on here, this is a place to be investing in. Because that 2 billion is also going to be 8 billion and much more in the next couple of years. There's no question that the growth of venture capital here in this area going to be dramatic and important. And we can do this very much together. Now in Israel, we've been very lucky to have exits now that are attracting investors because we, instead of just selling companies for a couple of $100 million, we're selling companies now for billions of dollars. And whether it's Mobileye for 15 billion or Mellanox for 7 billion or SodaStream for 3 billion plus, these are significant companies who are being bought by the world leaders. And the world leaders, when they buy an Israeli company, set up shop in Israel to continue their R&D. Would you believe now that there are 450 multinational corporations that are active in Israel doing R&D? The next wave, by the way, is going to be what I call the baby multinationals. Companies that have 2 billion, 5 billion, 20 billion of activity, who for them, innovation is as important to the big guys, in fact, more important. And they are now coming to Israel to set up, and that's why we have partnerships with people like Fleury and Saban, who are here at the conference. The number of Israel-founded unicorns is going off the chart. Now, this slide is a little bit generous because companies like WeWork, while it has an Israeli founder, is not an Israeli company. But there's a large number of these companies today in the world who are coming either from Israeli founders or from Israel. And what makes this even more exciting is Israel's, I dare say, dominance in the area of artificial intelligence. Right now, any of you who are entrepreneurs know that to get an investor excited, if you don't mention machine learning or artificial intelligence, you're sort of behind the power curve. You're not figuring it out. You need to have an AI angle for your company. Look at this chart, and you'll see that US is way ahead. This is about a year-old data. That number 2 spot is basically a tie between two really big countries. One is China and one is Israel. That's absurd, guys. Okay, and gals. How does Israel produce as many AI startups as the entire country of China? And by the way, I also say that our crowd is the most active venture investor in the AI area in Israel. This is what it looks like. You can't put 400 companies on a slide. It's a little hard. By the way, I'll be happy to share slides. All you have to do is send me an email to John and our crowd or be in touch with Rodrigo. If you're signed up here, maybe we'll even just send a note and a link to a thing so that you can take pictures. It makes me feel good, but we'll get you the slides if you would like. Now, it's not just AI, it's digital health. Israel has tremendous resources in digital health. In ag tech, about literally 400 startups in agricultural technology, which of course is extraordinarily important here for our partnership with Brazil. In the next generation of cars, Israel has become a world leader, not just because of Mobileye, but because there are now 700 startups in this area. We have a whole bunch. These are some of the leaders. In fintech, Israel's very strong. In Industry 4.0, in cybersecurity, everybody knows that Israel today gets 20% of all the investment dollars worldwide in cybersecurity, about 750, 800 startups here. This is a slide just for Boston, right? In other words, you can't have one slide of everybody, so you just take a subsection of this group. Food tech is the new flavor du jour. We're very excited about it. You're going to hear from an extraordinary company fighting our dependence on sugar, okay? And Israel is leading in food tech. Travel tech. Now, I'm stopping now, okay? Because there are literally about 50 of these ecosystem slides. That's an industry in and of itself, right? People are just producing these slides like crazy. But it gives you a sense of how broad this crazy little country is and how much activity there is, not just in one sector or two sectors, but in all sectors. Now, if you ask yourself why has Israel done this? We could spend hours, and I would love to do that, maybe over drinks, with your Paranino. What's that fire water you guys drink? It's wonderful. But I have to do this very shortly. I believe that what makes Israel outperform in innovation is a talent we have, which is actually an old tradition in the Jewish people, of turning curses into blessings. We take, almost like an Asian martial arts thing, use the power of the threat and turn it into something for good. So for example, water. We have no water. This is what Israel looks like, okay? It's a desert. Except Israel looks like this too, because we are the world leader in recycling water. 85% of our water is recycled. We invented drip irrigation, and we are the world leader in desal at the moment. Another curse is that our kids have to go to the army. As a father of people who've served in combat, I know what a curse this is, to worry at night. But in reality, it's a blessing, because our kids learn to not be narcissistic, to not be selfish, to be mission-driven, to work as part of teams, to give of themselves, and to get trained with great technology. Another curse is we have no market. You here are blessed with 200 million people. a great Brazilian market. Nobody wants to be the king of the Tel Aviv market. It's empty. Nobody's there. Okay, and it's too hard to make money anyway in Israel, trust me. The crowd is a tough crowd, okay? But the reality is that it forces us to have a blessing to go global. We build global brands. When an Israeli company starts, it doesn't think about the Israeli market. It thinks about Brazil. It thinks about the US. It thinks about China. They have to get their butt in gear and get out there or they go nowhere. And that's a blessing. Another curse is that some people still don't like us too much. We're a small number relatively to the rest of the world, but we still have some enemies. Turns out that is a blessing. It teaches us that, you know what? Life is short. We're all going to die. And I hate to break the bad news, okay? But the reality is, what are you going to do with your life while you're living? Are you going to be afraid? Are you not going to take risks? Are you going to sit back and watch other people do it? No. You're going to go out there and, like, what's the risk of starting a company compared to someone wanting to destroy you? It doesn't matter. What's the worst thing that happens if you start a company and it fails? You do the next one. And in fact, as a person who's doing his second company, who's had one failure, you make a much better investment candidate for the investor. So we learn to take risks intelligently. And ultimately, we have no resources, no natural resources to speak of. We have a little bit of natural gas now in the ocean, but we're tiny. Look at this speck. Look at the size of Brazil. Look at us. But this is a blessing because it forces us to focus on human resources, to make sure that our kids are educated, that we have the highest world percentage of Nobel Prize winners, and we spend that money on civilian R&D. So this is what we do in terms of turning curses into blessings. Now, when you talk about Israel and Latam, there is, I think, again, a perfect match in place where we can take our innovation, our drive, the technologies with your market, your execution, your marketing, your financial power, and your drive and entrepreneurship, and put them together and do great things for the world. Now, if you look at what's going on with our trade, right now, trade is going up almost about 20% a year for the last couple of years, about 1.2 billion in Israel-Brazil trade. The opportunity is huge, and it's in ag tech and energy, in financial technology, in digital health, in medical devices, in transportation. It's all those areas we spoke about. There is this huge opportunity between our two countries. And there are also incredible companies that are being built now in Latin America. These are all local heroes, okay, or regional heroes. Companies that are becoming the next generation of unicorns. And we want to invest in them. We want to work with them. We want to multiply this factor. And we have in our portfolio already a bunch of companies who are working already effectively with Latam. Some of them are here. Companies like Taranis, who are promoting crop yields. Sayo, who is doing coffee bean and cocoa testing in the field. Imagine a campesino now is able to get big data for nothing, okay, and to improve his yields. BioCatch, which is doing biometric authentication with Itaú. ThetaRay, who is helping a variety of financial partners, including Santander here. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. We have a strategic investment from Grupo Fleury and Sabine in our digital health fund. We're very appreciative of these two companies and very excited about where we're going with this partnership. And if you look at our crowd, and it's just a few minutes about who we are, we're today a very big global platform managing about $1.2 billion in assets. We've seen over 10,000 companies. We already have 200 direct investments where you can choose the companies which you see here. So if you get excited about any of these companies, you literally as an investor can pick them. And the minimum investment for an individual is $10,000. I don't know how to convert that to reais, but I'm sure you can. And you also have the ability of doing funds. We have 20 different funds, or 19 officially. One's coming out of the oven in a couple of days. and they have another 100 companies. We've had 35 exits. Our performance is really top-notch. We have about 40,000. We're just getting close to 40,000 worldwide investors now who have registered on the platform. Here in Brazil, for example, you have to have, I think it's about $250,000 of liquid assets outside of your house to be able to invest. And everywhere we work with what are called qualified or accredited investors. And we are the most active venture capital platform in Israel. For the second time in a year, according to PitchBook, we're the biggest, the most active. And what we do is we offer you the ability to invest either in a per company deal or in a fund. We have the 40,000 individuals, and we have a lot of institutions, including very large institutions, who are joining us. And the way we work is that we look at thousands of deals every year, hundreds of deals every month. We then research them and select and do diligence and structure deals on about 1% to 2% of them. We then invest our own money. So about 5% of every investment we do comes from us. And then we invest alongside really great other investors. And then we open it up to you guys. How do we do it? We do it on our online platform. We have, and if you're not registered, I would urge you to register on our platform. You'll be getting every week a new deal, and you'll get information about all of these companies. And there's no obligation. You don't have to pay a membership fee, or you don't have to commit to invest. We want you to see these innovative companies and join us if you're comfortable in doing it. This is what our, ecosystem slide looks like. The 200 or so companies that are in every area, whether it's cybersecurity or agriculture, semiconductors, food tech, software. It's in all of these areas. We have now 19 funds. This slide has not been updated, going to 20. And we also have a bunch of incubators. We just won a food tech incubator license for Israel's North, together with our partners Tnuva, Tempo, and Finisterre. Our median check size is at the moment about $3,500,000. So we're not talking small money. When you think crowdfunding, you often think a couple $100,000. But we're talking about millions of dollars. And actually, we have now approaching 50 companies who are valued over $100 million. If you look at our number of exits, we have 35 exits so far, and they're being bought by the world leaders. So companies like Wave were bought by H&R Block for $400 million. We were fortunate enough to be involved in the Beyond Meat deal, which is perhaps the hottest IPO of the last 2 decades, and we were able to get you, the crowd, invested. I mean, this is about democratization of access to this asset class, right? What's cool about it is, you know who's invested in Beyond Meat? Bill Gates, big investor. So we were able to get people like yourselves to choose to invest in Beyond Meat $10,000 alongside Bill Gates. Do you think you paid different prices for the shares? No. Did you get different classes of stock? No. You got the same deal that Bill Gates got. And that's what's cool about this democratization. I don't have that much time left, and I want to be mindful of staying on schedule, but we now have literally 12 offices around the world. We're going to be, I think, formally turning Rodrigo and his team into a formal office. They already are, okay? And we're very committed to LATAM. Our companies are working in all the sectors and leading. We've got a great med tech platform. You'll see and hear about many of these companies today. We've got portfolio news where guys are literally just changing the world on financial security or climate change, travel or food, and we're making a global impact. So what I want to do is show you a quick video of one of our companies. I think either this is going to be companies or going to be the summit, which will show you what we're doing.
There it goes.
This is what Parkinson's disease does to Kimberly Spletter. Uncontrolled movements, shaking and wobbling.
It got to the point where I was having difficulty getting dressed. I have a grandson. I couldn't snap his onesies. I was at a wedding recently and I couldn't dance with my dad. It was sad.
Now, doctors at the University of Maryland Medical Center are experimenting with a brand new treatment, something that's never been done before. It's called MRI-guided ultrasound.
It's been known for a long time that if you make lesions in certain parts of the brain, you can eliminate some of the symptoms.
And that's exactly what this treatment does, except there's no cutting and no surgery. Kimberly underwent this treatment less than a week ago. She says she had to shave her head, but the procedure didn't hurt. The only feeling is intense heat. The results, though, were immediate. She was able to walk.
It was just absolutely the most incredible thing in the world.
And when we met Kimberly this morning, there was even more emotion because she was able to accomplish something else, running, a favorite hobby that she hasn't been able to do for years.
It's turned back the clock for me. You know, I have a new lease on life. I can do things that I want to do. It's a blessing.
So indeed, startup companies who are tackling the curses that we're all faced with, whether it's Parkinson's or climate change or hunger or health in general or food, we need help from the startup community. And we can turn these curses into blessings. Okay, that, by the way, is a company of ours called Insight Tech, which is incredible, now working all over the world with this Israeli technology. And we are excited to be here today. We'd like you very much to come and join us in February at our Global Summit. There will be several delegations coming with Brazilian investors to join us. It's free. You've got to obviously get there on the LATAM flight or some other on Iberia or however you get to Israel. But come join us we expect 20,000 people registered. And I'll show you just a quick video of that, and then I'll get off the stage and we'll continue.
For society as a whole, it's very good that we have crazy optimists.
I am convinced that opportunity exists in my country, your country, and every country in the world, and it is our responsibility as creators to showcase this stuff, and your responsibility as investors to invest in this stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Avram Baniel, age 100.
My father says, even today, I operate under the assumption that I am eternal until somebody proves me wrong.